In this video, we'll cover a brief overview of role-based access control in the Harness platform. Harness is a strong foundation of governance based on early customers in financial services, government, and insurance. This allows for a lot of flexibility in terms of how you set up the role-based access control configuration in Harness. At a high level, you can set up configuration at the account level, which is the highest level of organization in Harness. But you can also set it up in organizations. So organizations typically are business units, which can have their own discrete permissions. This allows for a more federated approach where someone can have full capability at an organizational level, but not have the ability to manage things that are set at the account level. And then underneath organizations, you have the concept of a project. A project is a collection of associated pipelines or services or feature flags, essentially all the configuration around a particular initiative. And you can have multiple people working on a particular project. You can invite users to a project, you can invite users to an organization, but most enterprises start at the account level. And this is where you can configure access control. And so here we can invite new users to this account. And this would send out an email, and you can associate this particular user with a group that has associated RBAC permissions. Users typically are configured with authentication providers. So we have local username and password, but you can also configure OAuth providers and then also SAML and LDAP configuration as well. Typically for most enterprises, RBAC configuration is associated with groups that are tied to SAML and RBAC groups. So if I go over to access control configuration here we can see the users, user groups, service accounts, resource groups, and roles. So users, you can define levels of permission by associating them with groups or assigning roles to those users. So if I click on a particular user here, such as Guilherme, I can see what groups Guilherme is assigned to and what role bindings, or essentially what permissions for what particular resources he has. And so here we can see that he's associated with the field engineering group at the account level. If he had project or organization level permissions as well, we could see that too. If I go over to access control and click on roles, this is where we can define all the levels of permission that we want to assign to a particular group. So if I click on new role and just give an example here, click save. Here we can see the variety of configuration and the robustness around RBAC configuration in Harness. Every particular capability in Harness has associated permissions where you can set to things like view or edit and things for like environmental permissions. So it gets extremely granular in terms of how you want to manage this configuration. You can obviously clone these settings and modify them as needed. For a lot of enterprises, this robust configuration is really maintained at an API or with a Terraform provider to allow for automation around the role creation and so forth. If I go to a particular example real quick, I can go over to the access control of user groups. And so this is where I define group permissions. And I'll use the example of marketing. So this is a demo account. It's managed by field engineering team here at Harness. I want to give marketing the ability to do things in their organization as needed, but not affect the field engineering demos. So the way this is set up is marketing has demo executor role and everything in the account, but only has administration rights with this role binding to the marketing org. So everything inside the marketing org can be added and modified as needed without affecting the demos in the other organizations. So it's just a really easy way to set up this configuration. A couple other things I'll point out in the access control. You have the ability to define service accounts. These would be for things like API access or machine configuration. So not associated with users, more associated with automation around like an IDP or some other system that may be connecting to Harness. So you can see the configuration there. And then the final thing I'll show briefly is audit trail. So Harness keeps an audit of everything that's created, modified, deleted. You can take this audit trail and access it via API. You can stream it out to services like a Splunk or wherever you want to retain your audit data. So it's very important that we keep this information. And here I can see the last 7 days and all events. I can filter for particular things. I can also, if I go to save filters, I can go and show just different examples where I can drill into a pipeline changes. We also have a full YAML audit configuration, so you can see the actual diff of everything that's changed in config as code. And so it gives a robust audit trail across the board, across every capability inside the Harness platform.